Christian Bach was the last son of Bach's father, famous Johann Sebastian. Needless to give the first names of the father. Nevertheless, he only was 15 when his father died, and was really the composer of the, would you say, post-Baroque, Rococo, and still galant in London, where Handel and many German composers followed the King of Hanover, or the Prince of Hanover, who became King of England. And he became teacher of the children of the royal court in London. And he composed sonatas. And he's a bit older than Haydn, of course not Handel, and met Mozart when Mozart came in London to visit as a child. And those two sets of sonatas are very defining, I think, for the early classical period when one studies Haydn sonatas, like from the London period of the late Haydn sonatas after Mozart's death, which are very important to practice, of course, for pianists, even if not on the fortepiano, but mostly because of the crisp articulation of the sculpted ending of sounds, the energy of the rests, and the variety of articulations, the slurs, the 2x2, the turns, or the articulated 2x2 in a connection, like voiced operatic port de voix, appoggiaturas connected, or cute ones with staccato, or repeated notes. Very digital, a bit like in a Scarlatti sonata. So it's a good bridge of the piano technique, mirrored truth that can't escape in front of, because there aren't too many notes to cover up with, and everything has to be there. Light, elegant, dramatic, affected, sometimes operatic, but not too much. So it's a question of balance of touches, of balance of weight of the finger, the tip, of the freedom of the elbow, and especially the musical sense of the phrasing group of bars. So 1, second bar, third bar, second degree, third, fourth bar is a dominant with 7th, subdominant to the 6th bar, and of course the cadence 5-6, the cadence that allows to delay the arrival to the tonic, the deceptive. So this is one phrase. And then second phrase starting on the relative major. And always establishing it with the subdominant 5/5, which in this case is A flat. So first half will end on the dominant, on the relative major, and second on the tonic. But pianistically, the tonality of C minor is not yet the dramatic usage of it that Mozart would do with the Fantasy or the Sonata or the Concerto. Beethoven with the first C minor sonata, or middle sonata, the Pathétique, or the last sonata. All these C minors are always dramatic, always demonstratively dramatic, operatically so. And in these earlier times where it was written, a lot of it is embedded, but in a smaller proportion, but still very intense. important to teach and play this music because you learn how to control the articulations and at the same time unleash your freedom of phrasing. So you learn about how much to push yourself and how much not to be betrayed by your fingers, especially in quick things. The trills, the turns. And incorporate them not as elements but as syllables into a word and a sentence and a stanza. Very involved, but at the same time maintain a certain reserve because of the time period post-Baroque. And so in the beginning of the development you have some more dramatic usage like so you have the turn, the anticipation, the re-anticipation, and then the arrival. Getting very busy, very ornamented, sorry. And all these different elements of articulation and phrasing are part of this opera of articulations. As if each articulation of each theme is a character of the Italian opera buffa. Compared to so that would be like Don Giovanni, Donna Anna, and perhaps Operello, slightly comic. So you have the heroic, the perhaps feminine, and perhaps the comic. Is to practice also the understanding of the level of depth for the finger deepening in the keys or the action. To play legato, connectato, but not overstegato, even without pedal. Bring out what is essential, which is the tonic after the upbeat, and then the higher note of the first design, which is the G, and therefore separate the high G just with a dot, as if to understand it's another word. Not a staccato in interruption, but more like a change of bow. And it has to be done subtly, because if it's too much separated, it will sort of chop the sentence and become affected. It's an affect, but it's not affected. It is the fact that when you play 110 by Beethoven, you have these arpeggios. In 30 seconds, and Beethoven writes staccato on the first of 8 30 seconds only, as if it can be separated. And of course he writes pedal on top of it. So you have to have a different touch for the feeling of the chord, and an agile thumb articulation, as if it's a vertical finger. Here you have to do with the fifth finger. So here, and the other fingers, legato, just legato, not over legato, and not air legato, because it will be very cold. Is an articulation. Of course, the acoustics in concert halls are more resonant, so they tend to blend. Even without pedal, the intention of the separation with a yo po 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 po. It sounds like that, but so if you naturally play it with a legato do re mi fa sol mi re do re, and then the first 8 notes, and there are 5 of them, left hand. Each of the repeated notes should be a progression to the last one. And the fact that the melody starts upbeat, but the down left hand does not. The left hand starts on the downbeat, so the left hand is affirmative. Every downbeat. Whenever left hand being that, right hand is upbeat. And so it has to go to the peak in the middle of the bar. Second beat, second beat, second beat, second beat. And then in the second half of the phrase, it has the tenths with the bass. Just simply tenths, not a harmonization, not adjusted. But he does the anticipation of the next. And not as a suspension, but as an appoggiatura, of which the second release is not staccato. It'll be pretty cutie, but cutifying it doesn't make it right, because it's the meaning that matters, not just the beauty of the detail. It's a decoration more than an ornamentation, in order to have a parallelism of tenths with a suggested harmony that sort of blends out of the two and plays subtly the second of the two in the right hand as an anticipation, and then push more halfway up the key, so you can hear if it was a suspension, but it is appoggiatura. That is an appoggiaspension. Feels like a boat driving me to the direction of the arrival point. So after the left hand opening downbeat chords, establishing 1-7-1, then starts traveling by 8th notes in passing tones and in appoggiaturas. Not this time, it's more in tetrachords. 2-3-4-1 by 8th notes. And the right hand 2-3-4-1 by 16th note. It's always 2-3-4-1, 2-3-4-1, 2-3-4-1, 2-3-4-1, 2-3-4-1, 2. So every one, would it be 16th note or 8th note, is always rebouncing light and elegant and up, 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 and not down. It's not. And of course, deceptive cadence to allow to delay the arrival, which the publisher of the day added as a piano, as if we need the restatement to be in echo by functional, let's say, forte piano, which was not written dynamically. The dynamics are not written, rather, by J.C., since he was, after all, a harpsichord composer. The publisher on the front of the page in the early days of the 18th century wrote that is for harpsichord and possibly on fortepiano, since it's the new instrument in vogue, or the novelty coming up. It had to be not obsolete. Therefore, he added dynamic markings, and it's a bit basic to say that therefore this is forte, this is piano. You can do that in fortepiano music like Beethoven's Pathétique. And even that I don't agree. I don't think it's necessary. It's almost like excusing the repeat of the music, which is valuably so. It doesn't need to be displayed differently as if it's boring when it's just what it is, which is twice the same thing. And in this case, the opening is also with an upbeat, like in Beethoven and in J.C. instead of playing forte and piano at the deceptive moment where the melody is the same, but the harmonization is 6/3, is to play a little delay, as if just too long for it, with a leap of the octave, which is farther up than the first, which is a leap of a sixth. And establish this way a whole capsule of 8 bars. That would be the first group. Second group, relative major. And I think the second theme is a little bit more relaxed, perhaps abandoned. A bit coquette, a bit almost vain. With this playful catch me if you can on the upbeat, predecessor of Beethoven's Sforzandi on upbeats to come. Bars comes the second version of the 2x2, where the second is a staccato. Whenever the first group of 2x2, in my view, is a connected legato, ta ta ha ta ha ta ha ta, and here it tia 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 ta ta in the left hand. And these 2x2s that follow in the conclusion, like broken thirds but legato. They're unstemmed up, but they sound like it, even though they're too chopped. So I take the liberty to think of them like 3/8 notes with the rest up stem 2. With a surprise deceptive cadence on the effectively tonic of C minor, which it is, because we're in E flat major, relative major, so the deceptive, in fact, is the tonic. So you deceive yourself, kind of awkward. Probably a little bit of that humor that we find, and more than that in Haydn to come. So subito piano, and a big laugh. I'm sorry. Sort of like operatic laugh. Very proud and contrasting. That's very much opera buffa, with the different characters of the Commedia dell'arte, the sad and the happy. So beyond all these characterizations, it's an exercise in articulations, in touches, a toccata in a real sense of the word, touch, toccare, touch, variety of touches. Children of the English court were practicing to, in fact, in few bars, be able to play so many articulations and practice them. The legato, the 2x2, the 2x2 with staccato, the upbeat staccato, the trill, more in the development, the 2x2 that are broken thirds, and then at the end of the conclusion, which is redundancy to call it, these triplets in consecutive and alternative hands. Very characteristic of a lot of Scarlatti sonatas. These quick repeated notes between the hands. And here, so you have to measure exactly the lifting of the 60th note, which will be repeated by the other finger. So if it's too early, you won't repeat. Walking on your finger toes, so to say. So until you find the balance of the articulation, where each finger will be played. cherry pick the right hand, whenever the left hand can be more pizzicato. And I would recommend just a puff of pedal. Just because it's the fortepiano, no more. It's not even a harpsichord, obviously. It's the piano. And we're revisiting so many of the subtle articulations of the past through this instrument, which has a heavier action because it can play the big stuff. Here we have to remain within the framework of the chosen soundscape of the Rococo. So I still indulge. Probably because the acoustic is dry in the studio. But if it's a wetter acoustic in a church or perhaps in a bigger hall, the blending of the resonances of the repeated notes happens by itself. It's always the balance between clarity and echo, or clarity and a little bit of coating of harmonization. He's very attentive to be very simple in his very clear texture. Nothing is heavy. You don't have overly chordal elements, overly arpeggiated elements. You don't cover it in. Something like ridiculously heavy, or even this. We don't have that because everything is suggested, hinted. At most with the Alberti accompaniment, King Alberti. The tributes. So yes, they do form harmonic chords, mostly by the cascade of their arpeggiated notes. It's just a jubilation for fingers. And the last note I just missed. And then the development starts very innocently in the relative major, which we just established at the end of the exposition. Same thing in E flat major, so there will be symmetry. As we head. So far we are in the familiar terrain. And here he uses something striking, which is just out of one voice, without adding too many harmonic fill-up. He does the 16th notes by 2 legato with anticipation. And he connects 2 trills, one on the leading tone, one on the tonic, and the leading tone passed through the tonic to the higher note, in this case the G. So it creates a sense, I think it was meant, obviously hinted, of a rhythmic accelerando between the 16th notes by 2, the trill on the leading tone, a half note, and the trill on the tonic, but going up to the 2nd degree, but only half beat, so it becomes faster. So this sol, mi, do, si, la, this G is blossoming, it's fruits. The same G, or A, which was the peak of the opening that I separated with a slightly staccato. Here is this B, the C, but not trills. The peak. This is the peak of dramatic effect. You have the descent in chromatic, the lament, event of the chaconne or of the Passacaglia, the death of Dido, is the moment of dramatic chromaticism in minor, which is contrasting with the opening of the development in this pristine E flat major, and all of a sudden Sturm und Drang before the day. Minus harmonic fill-up is already Schubert, in the fact of starting in something very sunny and distant, in a few bars. So all these effects are Baroque most of the time, because that's where the Passacaglia comes from, the descending tetrachord of this ground bass. And the amount of over-decoration it feels like wearing a wig with many curls. Now, of course, we have half notes with octave in the left hand, which is most likely just an indication for something that could be more elaborate in the practice, performance practice of the day. Perhaps a more most likely have some kind of a dramatic effect to enhance the chromatic descent of the lament of this left hand, a bit like Mozart in his C minor concerto finale, his theme and variation. Also, could say that the theme is still in the right hand, but the decoration is in the left hand. In this case, is the right hand the decoration. Most likely, either a descending arpeggio to connect to next chromatic step, or perhaps a scale, or perhaps up a arpeggio and up an scale. No, down the scale, up an arpeggio. Sorry. Of course, then comes the question of proportion, tempo, speed, pedal, articulation. And perhaps it distracts too much from the attention of these curls. Because we don't only have the ornaments and the turns, we also have every time we have a major third that in fact results into an cacciatura, port de voix, ta, 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 just under the real note. And insisting on it like Beethoven would do in the 2x2s of the Tempest. As he does Johann Christian. Beethoven does so you could imagine the intensity of these cacciaturas, but instead of down, but up. And if I still remain in my credo that this is elegance, even if it's dramatic, but early dramatic C minor, not yet pathétique. Of course, in practicing, we always have to find the maximum of what we can obtain from ourselves. And so we can and should indulge in in extremes, in order to find ultimately the right tone. Not too much, not too little. And of course, some pieces reminds of our other pieces because of our connection of the dots. And that's normal. C minor is a very appealing key for dramatic statement. The K4-7 Mass by Mozart. Mozart was sort of plagiating J.C.Bach, though he did willingly so in the first sonatas when he as a child transformed them, J.C.'s, into his first concerti. But it's just because it's part of the toolbox of the musician who grew up in this time period between the church music, the opera music, the affects, the appoggiaturas, the cacciaturas, the laments, the descending bass, the passacaglia. So you learn those genres. It's but then, of course, you can learn them. It doesn't mean that you apply them in a way that you can suggestively hinting. In this case, more than in a full-fledged mass with orchestra and chorus, the descent of the chromatic lament. When I said earlier, it was the same chromatic descent that is used in the very famous Death of Dido, Dido and Aeneas by Purcell. Remember me. So much in hearing the opera with the soprano lamenting her death, obviously it takes a bigger dimension than what it is here, which is after all hinted, but I would say undiluted. It's almost as if we have it in the essence and not displayed, diluted and beautifully blossomed in orchestration. Imagination, our knowledge, our echo of music that we reminds us of should be there, should nourish our interest and most likely our curiosity and our sensitivity. In order to know, okay, this is the opera, this is the mass, this is C minor, this is the pathétique, this is that. I've heard those things, and now I just stay where it is. But I'm aware of it, and here is only the beginning of this era. Don Giovanni is not yet written. Deceptive cadence to delay the return to C minor, this time to the recap. With this weakness of the expression of this A flat, which in G minor doesn't exist, nor in, well, it exists as a modulation back to C minor through E flat, regardless how, but he goes through as if this bridge is all done for this expressive leaps of six, melodic sixth with ascending peaks which each create a chord. So very subtly, very hintingly, he creates a whole chord. how the imagination can sometimes go too far, too fast, and come back. In any case, it's not a deficit of imagination that I worry. It's a deficit of imagination that I don't want there to be. Too much imagination doesn't bother me because you can always focus your thoughts, your teacher, your student, and organize better. But sometimes, since so much is embedded and hinted between the transparency of this very clear structure, this A flat comes is a weakness that has to be played in that way. It's not. So a diminuendo and the A flat, needless to say, it's expressive of sort of hold the air, the breath. Together, kissing together, zesty grace note, appoggiaturas with the 2x2 of the tenderness. It's like a drop of lemon and inside is soft, like in Beethoven's. But on top with 310 by Mozart, by the 16th by 2, plus the grace note. It's really micro dosaged. If it's too much, it gets just the grit. But the real note, it's already an appoggiatura as an ornamentation, decoration. Plus the ornamentation, I meant. Had these bars of dominant pedal, semitone for the F sharp, but full tone for the A natural, which is the ascending minor. We only use the ascending minor with the major 6 to go to the tonic, and if we do it neighboring tone around the dominant, like under semitone, would be upper semitone, should be the A flat, the minor 6. And expressive and meaningful and sad and beautiful and everything you love in C minor, except that he has this little touch of lightness that comes with the A natural minor. It's like a little touch of semi-major. He still goes to A flat relative, deceptive in the 6th degree. Obviously, would have been expected. To 6 finally for the deceptive cadence is no more a surprise, but by having avoided the flat 6 but made it major, natural 6, even if it's going down back because it's a roderie, neighboring tone. So when the A flat comes in the bass after, it has a special meaning of dynamic, almost withheld sound. C minor. Just like earlier in the right hand, the A natural and the A flat. And here, cacciatura doesn't exist in the edition, to just soften this interval and add another dimension of dynamic effect, which is here more about the interval that is dissonant, the major seventh, the diminished fourth, which are synonymous of pleading, of longing. It's possible to do also alternatively la cacciatura, port de voix from under, delaying the real note, but from under, so it creates another dissonance, augmented fifth or diminished second, or here it was minor seventh, diminished fourth, and if it's slightly delayed, it becomes affected. Oh, it's so difficult to keep the exact balance between the hint, the suggestion, the exaggeration. Sometimes it's impulsive. Or perhaps I should play natural. I should play straight for once. No, too naked. This cacciatura in the Deceptive Arrival is written by him. So perhaps I shouldn't do the cacciatura before. Everything announced is no more a surprise, it's not fresh, it's not unexpected, it's not apparently organizedly spontaneous. Artifice, everything is artificial, but it has to appear like it is live. French garden in French castles, which have always a little maze section where the king used to playfully, I guess, try to seduce the young ladies. Not difficult when you're the king, but the fact is that it adds to the deceptive cadence of the point, is to delay the point of it by having these beautifully shaped green plants and create a little artificial man-made maze. And garden, like Le No.2 in France, the garden architects were very praised, as much as the building architects like Versailles, Le Brun. But my point is here that we almost feel like that the organization of the chaos of nature by the Baroque knowledge of gardens or castle or church structures that have to have a specific shape. The cathedrals have to look like a cross from above, from the sky, from the heavens, and the castles often have to have this apparent organized dominating nature, therefore the dominant king in it, symmetry, as if symmetry exists in this world. It doesn't, but it's sort of the organization of man organizing the chaos of nature, Haydn organizing the form of the sonata for the pure music in a certain way, and so everything has to be within certain etiquette and forms. And then inside that you inject expression of feeling, of lament, of happiness, of sorrow, of expectation, that doesn't have to be displayed as much as it will be when contents overwhelms the form in the Romantic era, where you just express your feelings and you start right away. You don't have to establish a tonic, a dominant, a subdominant, anything. You just expose your feelings right away, and that is almost indecent a century earlier in J.C.Bach, where everything is like in Haydn or Mozart, within the shape of the form, and then doesn't go overboard. Ravel was quoted having the most admiration for Haydn because he managed to express a lot of his emotional scale of emotions or feelings within, never outside of the frame of the formal frame. And of course already Beethoven needed to break it with two movement sonatas and fantasia sonatas, quasi una fantasia, and so he's already exploring different things. J.C.Bach calls it sonata, which literally in Latin of course means resonant or singing, or rather not singing but yeah, sonorous resonance. But it doesn't have to have exactly two, well, it does have two theme form. They're a little bit less developed in length, but embryonically there it is most of everything. And when you return in C minor, in the original key in the recap, you're in C minor. The same section in the exposition was in relative major, E flat. Inevitably it feels more optimistic compared to... Sorry. Key is minor, the recap has to have all the themes second included in the original key, therefore in the original mode of minor, and then it changes the character so much more than just transposing the key, because major and minor do start to have a different psychological hint to the listener for happiness and sadness in very basic demonstration. Of course it has more shades than that, many more. You can do ascending minor with the top major, the bottom minor, or descending minor with the top major and the bottom of the tetrachord minor, or harmonic minor with a gap of augmented second, which is more expressively painful if melodically. There's so many shades of minor, not to mention more, with the different modes inherited from the past of them. And to say that it's only happy and sad major and minor, it's a little bit reductive, and I wouldn't like to leave that impression. But I still think that in some simply musical aspect of terms, not, but in simple moods, it does make sense to feel a certain openness, and even if both are crescendo. But this is difficult not to feel a certain, perhaps a smile with a tear, or one of these expressions, more like cheesy. Perhaps it's only me, or perhaps it doesn't have to be felt like this by every student who I teach or I don't, or pianists or musicians who hear it. By itself, nothing is other than what it is. The music itself speaks as such, and we put into our feelings that a sunset is sad and a sunrise is happy or hopeful, and we think of it because we approach it with our eye of our beholder. If so, I still like to accept both the humanity of it and the simplicity of the text itself. But the text is part of the humanity, it's not just out of it. So I think without to sentimentalize it too much, one still should allow it for sentiments to be expressed. Sentimentalism might be a little bit of a pejorative word, but feelings and sentiments are grand. They only make our soul greater, to love, to share, to hope, even to fear, all these essential things. And I think this level is much, of course, hinted. But for instance, Mozart in the third movement of his C minor sonata, before even the Sturm und Drang, or about of it, the pleading, and then the revolt or the rambunctiousness, and then the rest that the revolt drops, and philosophically concludes, what am I in this universe of sorts? And that rest is pregnant, striking, almost stabbing rest when you go. Obviously, in comparison, Mozart operatically on the piano goes so far compared to here, J.C. Here in Mozart, but he only pushes further the effect, or further the expression of contrast, of dramatic effect, of striking, almost like Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. The knocking of the consciousness or of the destiny, as we like to think of it in a pathetic way, pathétique. C minor is really conducive to this kind of dramatic, heroic feelings. Naturally, if we had studied this with him, we would have not known about the pathétique. We wouldn't have not known about the Tempest. We wouldn't have not known about the Fifth Symphony. We wouldn't have not known about the Op.11, the last sonata. We wouldn't have not known about Mozart's Fantasy in C minor. In other words, we would have been fully involved in this for what it is. And it's impossible today, when you teach it, play it, hear it, listen to it, compare it with recordings or read it for yourself. You cannot make an abstraction of everything you've heard in C minor since, at least even inconsciently. It doesn't have to be like you make a doctoral statement to yourself, like I'm going to make the list of the C minor pieces that are pathétique, dramatique. No, but it just is there. And so it's difficult, more even so for us compared to them then, to re-establish in which framework we're going to hold all these dramatic effects, not to go overboard, while finding the right tone of music, the right tone of voice, not whisper, not scream, just intentions and so few realizations. More than ever, the image comes to me always of the sand castle on the beach. Ephemerally beautiful, or not, but anyway, to always restart after each wave. Gives hope, even if on the spot it could be disappointing after all these years to say, why can't I do the trail? I should by now, and all that. Oh, thank you.